All right, what is going on? We are taking a break from the normally scheduled Science and Application with Eric Helms, also known as Say What? And I'm going to be talking a bit about my own personal athletic journey. This is something that I don't do a lot of, that I used to do a lot of, though. For those of you who have been aware of me on the Dat Dare interwebs since early 2000s, I used to log my progress as a competitive natural bodybuilder and powerlifter on the bodybuilding.com forums all the way back from, say, 2005 or 6. I logged my 2007, 2009, and 2011 competition seasons there, and I also logged a lot of my off-season powerlifting that I would do. Around the time I moved to New Zealand, where I am currently to do my second master's and my PhD, which I'm still working on, I started to much more emphasize the research I do, information, doing things like recording videos for helping people achieve their own goals, understanding science, helping trainers, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the reasons I did that was because I thought there was a disturbing trend of people just basically copying their idols instead of actually learning how to train or learning the concepts of training or understanding that individual differences are so great that people shouldn't be training the same way. I found people were just kind of copying. So I was like, you know what I do on a Thursday in the gym really doesn't matter. What you need to understand is more how to train. So that's why I've kind of de-emphasized that. So I hope now at this point, though, that people understand that and they don't just simply mirror or copy whoever their favorite bodybuilder, powerlifter, or fitness personality is online, and rather learn from them. Or learn from the people who it's appropriate to learn from. But with all that said, I do think there is value in learning from someone's journey and experiences because the decisions we make, how we modify training to fit our lives, to fit our goals, and the emotional process, I think is something that normalizes being an athlete. I think it helps us understand how to put our goals in perspective, and I think in the end it can be very helpful. And I think the logs that my fellow coaches have are very cool, and they can be inspirational and useful. And I know when I was coming up, finding people who had similar goals and mindsets to me and seeing them years ahead of me was very helpful because it helped me stay in the game, stay motivated, and put my own goals in perspective and understand what I was experiencing was normal. So for that reason, and with that huge disclaimer / preamble, I do want to talk about my training a little bit. Because A, I find it's helpful for me, and B, I hope it helps at least one person out there. So yeah, what's going on with me? Well, those of you who may have been following our channel in the last few years, I have put up little snippets of my training. My wife and I did about a year of Olympic weightlifting in conjunction with powerlifting. Once I started my second master's, basically in 2012, I've taken a hiatus from bodybuilding. So my last show that I did in 2011, I won my PNBA pro status, so I'm eligible to compete in the INBA as a professional. However, I would get absolutely stomped in the pro natural bodybuilding ranks, and so I decided, this is perfect. I can take some time off, focus on my studies, and not have dieting, take away from that, which it's very difficult to do both, and just focus on powerlifting and building my physique when I'm not studying. And I thought it'd be also a great opportunity, as I'm getting a PhD in strength and conditioning, to learn more about Olympic weightlifting. So I got my USAW cert before I came out, did some Olympic weightlifting for about 2 months locally before I moved to New Zealand. And then once I got here, I started training with Adam Story at North Sport Olympic Weightlifting, who I interviewed on the channel, and he brought me through 3 comps in Olympic weightlifting and coached me throughout a large part of my own powerlifting as well. Excellent coach. And I got up to something like a 200 kg total at 94 kg weight class. Not good at all, but I was happy to do it. The reason why I had to stop was because of something called FAI, or Femoral Acetabular Impingement. Right around 2013, I started having reoccurring back pain and what I thought was IT band pain or TFL or maybe bursitis on my right hip. and I found that this was actually due to me twisting as I got into the hole, and I just simply didn't have the range of motion on my left hip that I used to. So I went through a lot of failed attempts at physical therapy and eventually got diagnosed through MRI and seeing a surgeon, and found out that I actually had what's called femoral acetabular impingement, which is your femur and your acetabulum, basically your thigh bone and the hip socket, damage to them over time that makes the bones grow in such a way that it impinges and prevents range of motion and deep flexion, like in a deep squat, and can damage the labrum, which is kind of like the seal around the joint. Now, everyone and their mother thinks they have FAI when they hear about this. If you have hip pain, 90% chance you do not have FAI. And to properly get it diagnosed, you do have to get an MRI and see a surgeon and get a full diagnosis to confirm it. So definitely don't take this as, oh my God, that's what I have. I have trouble going full depth and I get pain in my hip when I do it. It basically happens from wear and tear. It's not an acute injury. It's not something you can physio away. It's a bone. And as soon as I realized what was going on, I had a couple options. One was surgery, and the other one was to train around it. So I did that for a long time. I basically stopped doing Olympic weightlifting because it requires a very high velocity, loaded, deep flexion position. And I found that it was very difficult to keep doing Olympic weightlifting and not aggravate my hip. So I gave up Olympic weightlifting and just did powerlifting. However, deep low bar squats did cause problems. I can still do full depth front squats because I stay so upright, my hip angle isn't as much. But when I'm in a low bar squat position, I'm forward leaned, I start to impinge right before meet depth. So about 90% of the year, I'm only doing front squats and box squats above parallel, just to limit my depth to protect my hip. And that's okay, but basically my squat has kind of stagnated. I've been stuck right around 222, 225, depending on the day. And I think to progress, I will probably need to be doing more full depth squats. And I think I could do it now, and I could do more box squats, but it would start to damage my hip even more and accelerate my timeline to needing surgery. So right now I'm in a position where I'm probably going to be getting surgery pretty soon. And I just competed this last weekend, about a week ago, and I want to kind of talk about what led up to that, what I've experienced, and how my training has been going since. So let's first start with just a recap of the meet, and we can actually see some footage here. Okay, so this is my third attempt on squats. I went 210, 220, and the goal was to go 225 or maybe 227 if it felt really good. But 220 was a grinder, and as you can see here, I made the right call being conservative and doing 222 and a half, which is 491. Barely got that up. So probably a good attempt selection on my part there. Good to be conservative. On bench, I went 142 and a half. 147, which was equal to my last meet PB, and this was 150. I was going to go 152 and a half, but I decided to be conservative as well. I just wanted to build that total and just grab the conservative meet PB. And then on deads, I went 230, 240, and this is my attempt at 245, which actually was interesting because right about here I pass out, drop the weight, and almost fall down. Fortunately, I get conscious before I face plant. So the meet went overall pretty well, and I'm going to basically talk over this training footage that is playing here. So I think the reason why I nearly passed out at the end of that was that I had to cut more weight than I should have let myself cut to make the 93 kg class. When I first got out to New Zealand in 2012, I was hanging right around 93, which is about 205, 206, 207, depending on the day. With a pretty good body comp, and that was where I was hanging out. And I was slowly increasing my training volume. I think the heaviest I ever got was 94, 95. But then, right around last year in July, I started to collect data for my PhD, and what required me to be in the lab probably 6 days a week on average. Took up a huge amount of time, and essentially, I could not train with the volume that I needed to continue progressing. So I kind of plateaued, unfortunately, from say, July to January of this year. But I was very motivated and excited to get back in the gym January of this year, and I got back in the gym 6 days a week. I upped my volume, made some very good progress. My bench catapulted forward, which is one of the reasons why I was able to bench 150 with something left in the tank, when before 140 was kind of my struggle. I also got my squat up to 225, got my deadlift up to 252. So my best numbers in the gym, very close to what I've done on the platform. I've done 250 deadlift, 222 and a half squat, and 150 bench now. My numbers in the gym, the best I've done is 495 squat, which is a 225 kilos and pounds, and a 155 touch and go bench, which is I think 343, and a 150 paused, which is what I did in the meet, 331, and then a 252 and a half deadlift, which is 556, and meet I've done 551. So yeah, it's been very good progress, and a lot of that was because I let my calories just increase. I increased my volume a lot, and I really just looked up one day and I was like, shit, I've actually got up to 97, 98 kilos, which is I think about 216 at the heaviest, with a really good body comp, which is something that I've wanted to do since the start over 12 years ago when I first started training, was get to a point where I was 220 pounds and looking the part of a bodybuilder, and I thought that's what I needed to do as a 6-foot competitor to look good. And I've always, at a certain point, I kind of lost hope that would ever happen, but now I think I can actually do it. So we're at an exciting point in my career now where I'm actually going to push to get up to 100, compete in the 105s, and hopefully be stronger. And if not, even if my Wilks score is the same, it's a net win as a bodybuilder. That's the way I look at it, is I'm bigger, and my absolute strength is up and my relative strength is unchanged. And hopefully, if what I think will happen is going to happen, I'll increase my strength ceiling and maybe even be able to be stronger and get my Wilks score over 400 for the first time, which is exciting stuff, and just kind of is a reaffirmation of me knowing that it is about time and consistency. So yeah, I'm probably going to get hip surgery after my PhD finishes early next year, and then I will be, progressively, trying to get back into heavier and heavier weights, recovering, and then I'll get on the platform in the 105s, which will be fun, and potentially even getting back on the bodybuilding stage to make my pro debut if all those changes go as planned. So it's exciting stuff for me. If the hip surgery allows me to squat the way I used to, and I might be able to pass that 500-pound barrier, and I'm able to get to a better body comp than I ever have. So I'm just very excited about the future. So to kind of recap all the training you're seeing here, today was front squats, RDL, bench, cable row, chins, and hamstring curls. I kind of did an everything session. I just got off of a taper, so that means that I kept the RPEs very low, nothing higher than 7 or 8, especially on RDL, and I only did 2 working sets of RDL because I really want to limit the amount of delayed onset muscle soreness I get, which is accentuated with a eccentric dominant movement like the RDL. So I'm not training with a huge amount of intensity here. You're not going to see me hitting failure. But this is a typical type of a training approach I might have, and this is me taking a hypertrophy kind of focused approach to training now. The front squats are great for me because they allow a full range of motion that I can hit. They will become the dominant part of my training. I'll do more RDLs, and the sumo deadlift frequency will go down maybe once a week. I'll be doing a lot more overhead presses, rows, chins. Training volume will overall be progressively going up, and I'm just really excited to see what I can do. So that's pretty much it. This training is on kind of fast forward, but so it may look like I'm really moving it fast, but this is at 200% speed. Just to give you some relative numbers of my top sets, I worked up to 3x10 at 242 pounds or 110 kilos on bench, and I did 242 for 3x5 on squats, and I did 140 kilos or 309 for sets of 5 on RDLs, and that's all that was pictured here. The rows, I think, were something like 80 kilos for sets of 10. So that is it. That's my first installment, and this is Eric Helms, the rebuild. Well, not rebuild yet. I'm going to have to get the surgery first, but exciting times for me, moving up to the 105s, what that implications it has for me getting on the pro stage as a drug-free bodybuilder, maybe actually able to hold my own and yeah, just exciting times to be me. So it's cool. I hope that helps, and I wanted to share that with you. And I think the main message is that keep trying to progress, keep being consistent, and you will see progress.